So they tried to ask at the press conference. So there's Joe Biden's press secretary, and a Daily Call reporter named Diana Glebova. She attempted to ask a question of Dr. Fauci. This is his last day or his last press conference. Tried to ask him about the origin of the COVID-19 virus, because as we found out, he was funding gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab. And a lot of speculation.
We don't call it that. You're asking me questions.
You're asking me questions now. And so she tries to ask him a question about the origin of the lab leak. And then a New York Post reporter, Stephen Nelson, he tries to piggyback on her question. And watch how they shut it down. Watch this. You can't ask. By the way, Rand Paul exposed him he lied twice to Congress, Dr. Fauci, about funding gain of function. And they did. They funded it. We now know. They all admit it. They admit it now. Echo Health Alliance and the NIH admit that they were funding gain-of-function research. He still lied to Congress about it. Of course, he lied at the behest of the establishment, so he'll never be prosecuted. Just like all the people who are committing torture are never prosecuted because they're doing it at the behest of the establishment. So if you commit a crime at the behest of the establishment, just like if you lie, like Rachel Maddow did over COVID and every other thing, that she'll never be in trouble. Okay, so here we go. And they try to ask about the origin of the virus. Remember, they said it was racist. If you said the virus came from the Wuhan lab, you were a racist.
It didn't come from a lab. It was probably from their dirty food. Don't be a racist.
Here we go.
Dr. Fauci, only 13% of...
Hold on one second.
Hey.
We have a process here. I'm not calling out on people who yell. And you're being...
That's it. And so, it's so funny. Bad manners asking about the origin of the virus.
You're being disrespectful to your colleagues, and you're being disrespectful to our
guests. It's all about decorum.
I will not
if I don't
call
respect
on
any of you
if you yell. And also, you're taking time off the clock because Dr. Fauci has to leave in a couple of minutes. I'm done. I'm not getting into a back and forth with you. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Dr. Fauci,
but she's
only
asking a great question.
So now people start asking him again, tried to piggyback on that question, and he's just not going to answer it.
You ask your question, you should allow her to answer.
And then this guy. Remember this guy?
Yeah.
This guy who is from Africa, and he started his own news organization, and then they stopped his payments because he was rude to Jen Psaki, because Jen Psaki would never call on reporters from Africa.
We interrupted her going away.
Her going away thing, and so
Simon Atiba.
So Simon Atiba. So then Stripe canceled his ability to get payment at his news site, and so he's still there. And he starts saying, "Hey, that's a legitimate question. Why don't you let him answer the question?"
Now he's fighting for the white people to also ask questions because it's that bad?
Yes, that's how bad it is. He's fighting for white people to ask questions. There we go.
Now you call on no one.
What happened? Here we go.
Dr. Fauci, only 13% of...
Hold on one second. We have a process here. I'm not calling out on people who yell. And you're being disrespectful to your colleagues, and you're being disrespectful to our guests. I will not call on you if you yell. And also, you're taking time off the clock because Dr. Fauci has to leave in a couple of minutes. I'm done. I'm not getting into a back and forth with you. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Dr. Fauci,
but she's
only
asking a great question. You ask your question, you should allow her to answer the question. She's asking a valid question, Dr. Fauci, on the original.
And at any moment, Fauci could step up to the microphone and answer that goddamn question.
Yeah, he really could.
But he's not gonna.
If he thought it was true, that wasn't true, that is not.
That is right. He can't wait to get to a microphone. But he doesn't want to answer the question because most likely he funded the virus that caused COVID-19, which means he's responsible for millions of people's death. And if that's true, he should be in prison. But because he did this all at the behest of the establishment and huge corporations that own our corporate captured government, there'll never be a price for him to pay. And then he's not going to answer this question.
COVID-19.
It is not your turn. It is not your turn.
You can't on the same people. That's the thing. You can't read a press briefing. You need to call from people across the room. She has a valid question. She's asking about the origin of COVID-19.
I hear the question.
And Dr. Fauci is the best person to answer
I hear your question, but we're not doing this the way you want it. This is the disrespectful.
We're not
it
answering
is.
questions.
So she'd rather have an argument for 5 minutes about not answering a question than just going ahead and answering the question, which shows that she's covering up. And of course, nobody wants to talk about the culpability of Dr. Fauci and our U.S. government for funding the origin of this pandemic, which is what most likely happened.
It's his last day.
But you guys keep being angry at Joe Rogan and Jimmy Dore for being correct, by the way. I was against vaccine mandates. Everyone then equated that with being anti-vax. I wasn't, haven't, still ain't. I was right. The mandates were bullshit because of what the Pfizer executive admitted in front of the European Parliament. So I was 100% right on that. And everybody who was wrong about that will never apologize or acknowledge that they were wrong about the vaccine mandates, because that takes character. And that takes integrity. And there's not a lot of people who are on the authoritarian side of this that have any character or integrity. And I stuck my chin out. I was right. I got my chin kicked in several fucking times. There's still a video out there with 700,000 views. That's all smears. That's all bullshit, smears. Jimmy Dore is anti-vax. I'm not. Jimmy Dore sells T-shirts, just like everybody. That's the whole video.
You sold T-shirts? You didn't tell me that.
And so everybody now refers to me as anti-vax and all that because I happen to be right about vaccine mandates, that they didn't make sense. They were authoritarian. They weren't following the science, and there was no science to back them up. I was correct. And now they won't even take a question on it. His last day, she won't let anybody ask that question. Why?
Rude?
Because she's a good tool of the empire. She's black, she's gay, she's an immigrant, and she's a female. I love it. I love being lied to and oppressed by someone who fits those 4 checks on the
You know
box.
what? I'll bet people in Haiti right now are like, thank God I'm being representationed right now.
I'm done. Simon, I'm done. Simon, I'm done. I'm done with you right now.
I'm
Go ahead.
done with
Go ahead.
you.
Go ahead. You're taking time
can't
away from your
even.
colleagues. Go ahead.
Only 13% of the
This sounds like a troubled school district teacher
Yes.
yelling at the class.
It's like high school never ends.
Yeah.
And there is Fauci hiding behind black women like the rest of the Democratic Party. In case you didn't know, every time Fauci smirks, a beagle gets his vocal cords cut. In recent years, last month he accused so that's just him. By the way, and then that's where they cut his stripe. So that's it.
But he was really rude, I heard.
You know, questioning Moderna is the real misogyny.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's Fauci and the White House covering up for probably they funded the research that led to the creation of the virus, so they would be culpable for millions of deaths, and they can't admit that.
Well, you know
I'm
what?
not saying that did happen.
If they had made such a great vaccine that totally works, I would be a lot more mad about it too. But
If he hadn't,
luckily we came up with the cure this time.
Luckily, they invented the problem, and then luckily they could sell us the solution for $100 billion.
But next time we might not be so lucky. So
Right.
that's what my concern is.
What is it called when you invent a problem and then you sell a solution? What is
I told you, Nike.
called? We'll see you November 26th. That's the Saturday after Thanksgiving in Burbank. And then all December, we're going to be in Los Angeles doing Friday night shows. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all the tickets and become a premium member. While you're there, you get all of our videos unedited. jimmydore.com, not Jimmy Dore Comedy.